You know that feeling when you check your bank account mid-month and the number is somehow lower than you expected, but you can't point to a single big thing you bought. You didn't go on vacation, you didn't make any major purchases, but the money is just gone in small pieces across dozens of transactions your brain barely registered. That's not financial irresponsibility. That's your brain being outmaneuvered by what economists call a micro-depletion loop, a spending pattern engineered to stay invisible. Today, I'm breaking down 10 things you're probably buying every single day that your brain doesn't count as spending. It counts. It adds up. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Number 1, your daily coffee order. Not coffee from home. The coffee shop order, bought on the way in, sometimes on the way back, occasionally both. A $6 latte once a day, 5 days a week, across 50 working weeks. That's $1,500 a year. Not paid in a single transaction your brain would pause and evaluate. Paid in 250 separate $6 moments, none of which felt like a meaningful financial decision. This is what behavioral economists call sunk cost comfort spending. Small recurring purchases that your brain classifies as maintenance rather than choice, so they never get interrogated the way a one-time expense would. You don't decide to spend $1,500 on coffee this year. You decide 250 separate times to spend $6 on coffee today. Your brain treats each of those 250 decisions as isolated, zero consequence, not worth a second thought. The $6 moment never feels like the $1,500 moment it actually is. That's the entire mechanism. The reframe here isn't stop drinking coffee, it's updating the number your brain is running. Once the real annual figure lands and stays, the calculus shifts. A $22 bag of whole bean coffee that carries you 2 full weeks of excellent home brew suddenly looks like a completely different category of decision than it did before. Number 2, bottled water. This one feels almost too small to include, which is exactly why it belongs here. The individual purchase, $2, maybe $3, sits well below your brain's threshold for evaluation. You don't deliberate over a $2 decision, your hand just reaches. But research from the Pacific Institute found that bottled water costs between 300 and 2,000 times more per gallon than tap water, depending on brand and location. The average American spends around $170 per year on bottled water alone. That number still doesn't feel alarming until you understand what you're actually paying for, which is not water. Tap water in most American cities is tested more frequently and held to stricter federal safety standards than bottled water, according to the Natural Resources Defense Council. What the $3 purchase is actually buying is what psychologists call purity theater, the visual and psychological signal of a sealed, branded plastic bottle that your brain reads as inherently cleaner and safer than whatever comes out of the tap. The bottle is the product. The water is almost beside the point. The reframe, a quality reusable bottle and a basic countertop filter, costs roughly $40 up front and eliminates $170 in annual spend, while producing the exact same psychological signal. Something clean, contained, and intentionally chosen that the plastic bottle was providing. Number 3, convenience snacks. The ones grabbed at the checkout line, the vending machine on the 3rd floor, the gas station cooler during a fill-up, the individually wrapped things sitting in a bowl near the office front desk. Each purchase is $2 to $4. Each one barely registers. But research from the Food Marketing Institute found that the average American makes roughly 1.5 unplanned food purchases per day, which compounds to somewhere between $1,000 and $1,400 in annual impulse food spending. Here's the mechanism behind that number. Food companies and retailers have spent decades optimizing what food scientists call the grab zone, the physical and psychological space where purchases happen below the level of conscious deliberation. items placed at eye level. Snacks positioned at natural pause points in a commute or a workday. The vending machine located precisely where blood sugar tends to dip in the afternoon. Your brain isn't making a considered choice when it reaches for the $4 protein bar at checkout. It's executing a behavioral reflex engineered for that exact moment, in an environment specifically built to produce that outcome. And those individually wrapped, health buzzword labeled snacks carry a markup of 200 to 400% compared to buying equivalent nutrition in whole food form. The shift isn't willpower. It's environment design working for you instead of against you. Having something already available when your brain goes looking, so the reflex fires at a choice you already made rather than one being made for you in the checkout aisle. Number 4, delivery app fees. Let's just do the math, because the math is the entire argument. You open the app, you see a burger listed at $14. You order it. By checkout, you've paid $14 for the burger, a $3 service fee, a $4 delivery fee, a $2 small order fee triggered because you didn't hit the minimum, and a $4 tip because leaving nothing feels uncomfortable. That's $27 for a $14 meal, a 93% premium above the price your brain agreed to when you decided to order. Research from Gordon Haskett found that all-in delivery app costs average between 40 and 91% above standard menu pricing. But there's a second layer most people never realize. A significant number of restaurants list their delivery app prices 15 to 30% higher than their in-person menu prices specifically to offset platform commissions. So the $14 you saw was already an inflated number. The markup had a markup, and your brain, which anchored to that original $14 at the moment of decision, never fully processes the $27 that actually left your account. This is anchoring bias working against you. Rational evaluation locked to the first number, every fee after that perceived as a small addition rather than a compounding overcharge. The reframe isn't never using delivery. It's treating delivery as its own product with its own real price. If $27 burger appeared at the top of the screen, you might still order it, but you'd be deciding to spend $27, not discovering it at checkout. Here's what connects all 4 of these. None of them feel like spending in the moment. Your brain doesn't process a $6 coffee or a $2 water or a $3 snack as a financial decision worth flagging. That's not a personal failure. It's a deliberate feature of the daily environment you move through. Purchases kept small enough to feel inconsequential, made frequent enough to total thousands, normalized enough that pausing to question them feels excessive rather than rational. You're not bad with money for not noticing. But the next 6 items on this list are where the engineering gets more intentional, the signals get more sophisticated, and the costs get significantly harder to see. Number 5, subscriptions you've forgotten you're paying for. Not the useful ones, not the ones you actively chose to keep. The ones silently charging you every month for 6, 10, sometimes 20 months while your attention was completely elsewhere. The meditation app you opened 4 times and then never again. The cloud storage upgrade you bumped up during a stressful week because you were running out of space. The premium tier of a tool you used for a single project that wrapped up a long time ago. Research from C+R Research found that the average American underestimates their monthly subscription spending by $133. People guess they spend around $86 per month. The actual average is $219. That $133 gap, every single month, is $1,596 per year, leaving your account in increments your brain stopped registering a long time ago. This is what behavioral economists call attention debt. Every subscription you're not actively using still carries cognitive weight. The low-level background awareness that you should evaluate it, that you should check whether you still want it, that at some point you're going to cancel it. Multiply that across 8 or 12 simultaneous subscriptions, and that weight becomes exhausting enough that your brain simply stops processing it. The charge clears, it gets quietly reclassified from decision to ambient overhead. Companies have built entire business models around this exact transition. The free trial requiring a credit card up front. The annual plan offered at a discount specifically because it removes the monthly cancellation window. The pause before cancel flow that resets your evaluation timeline. None of it is accidental. These are features engineered to outlast your attention. The reframe. 1 hour, once a year, going through every recurring charge in your bank statement. Not to cancel everything. To make an actual decision consciously about which ones you'd sign up for today if you were starting fresh. The ones you wouldn't are costing you real money for no reason you'd defend out loud. Number 6, gas station and convenience store impulse purchases. You stopped to fill the tank. You went inside to pay. And somehow you're now holding a drink, a bag of something, and a chocolate thing near the register that wasn't on any list and wasn't anything you wanted before you walked through that door. Research from the National Association of Convenience Stores found that customers who enter a convenience store intending to purchase only fuel or one specific item end up completing transactions that average $7 to $9 above their stated purchase intent. Twice a week, across a full year, that's $700 to $900 in spending, triggered entirely by physical proximity and a moment of idle boredom. Not genuine want, not actual need, not any real decision. This is what retail analysts call proximity pricing. The layout of a convenience store is not random. High-margin impulse items are placed at every natural pause point. The path from entrance to counter, the space around the register, the cooler position directly in your sightline when you first walk in. Your brain, slightly on autopilot, fills idle seconds by reaching for the nearest available option. The reframe is structural, not moral. A drink already in the car removes the idle thirst trigger. Knowing the $7 average overage before you walk in makes the pattern visible in the moment rather than in hindsight. You might still buy the thing, but you'd be actively choosing to, not discovering afterward that you did. Number 7, convenience premiums while you're in motion. The parking spot 2 rows closer that costs $4 more than the one that's free. The airport meal purchased past the security checkpoint, where prices average 30 to 50% higher than outside because there's no exit option. The rideshare taken instead of the train because it was raining and the wait felt inconvenient. Each costs $3 to $8. Each feels completely proportionate in the moment, because in the moment your brain isn't comparing the cost against zero. It's weighing minor discomfort against minor comfort. And comfort wins almost every time when you're tired or running slightly behind schedule. Research from the American Transportation Research Institute found that the average commuter spends roughly $800 per year on what analysts call friction avoidance micro-premiums, small upgrades purchased to eliminate minor inconveniences that would have resolved on their own within a few minutes. $800 a year, not on things, on the temporary sensation of avoiding slight annoyance. You're not buying a parking spot. You're buying 3 minutes of relief from mild friction. Companies have priced that relief with remarkable precision, and they deploy it at the exact moments when you're least likely to evaluate it. Now the list shifts in a meaningful way. The first 7 items on this list are habit failures, purchases your brain runs on autopilot because they're small enough, frequent enough, and familiar enough that deliberate evaluation never kicks in. The environment was engineered to produce them. Your inattention cooperated. But items 8 through 10 work through a completely different mechanism. They don't exploit your inattention. They exploit your confidence. These are things you buy while actively believing you're doing it smartly, that you're the kind of person who extracts value from the system rather than simply being extracted from. Item 8. Loyalty programs and rewards-based spending. You signed up because it seemed like the obvious move. Points for purchases you were already making. Cashback accumulating in the background, rewards adding up towards something worth having. The card is in your wallet, the app is on your phone. The balance ticks upward with every transaction, and there is a specific and recognizable feeling attached to watching that number grow. The quiet self-satisfaction of someone who has figured out how to make their everyday spending work for them. That feeling is real, and it is exactly what loyalty programs are engineered to produce, because a customer who feels like they're winning is a customer who keeps spending. The data on how this actually works, though, is less satisfying. Research from McKinsey found that loyalty program members spend 20% more annually than non-members at the same retailers. That's the headline statistic the programs advertise, framed as evidence of value delivered to loyal customers. What it actually describes is the mechanism working exactly as designed. Customers anchored to their points balance spending more to protect and grow it. Even when the underlying math doesn't support that behavior. The actual redemption value of a loyalty point averages 0.7 cents, according to analysis from the Points Guy and NerdWallet. A $1,000 purchase earns you $7 in real redeemable value. The program has extracted 20% in additional spending, potentially $200 more than you'd have spent otherwise, and returned you $7. You're not beating the system. The system was designed around the certainty that you'd believe you were. The reframe: loyalty programs are fine for purchases you'd make anyway at the same price, with no card. The moment you're choosing a retailer, upsizing an order, or extending a subscription specifically to hit a points threshold, the math has flipped. You're spending money to earn the feeling of earning money. Those are different things. Number 9, branded generics. This is the one that lands hardest, because it targets the version of you that did your homework. You stood in the aisle and compared the $14 name brand version with the $6 store brand version. You read the label on both. You noticed the active ingredients were identical. You chose the $6 one. And you felt good about that choice, the way a rational, informed consumer is supposed to feel. Here's what you didn't know. In categories from over-the-counter medication to pantry staples to personal care, independent quality analyses consistently find that premium branded products and their generic counterparts are frequently manufactured in the same facilities, sometimes on the same production lines, with identical formulations. The FDA requires generic medications to demonstrate bioequivalence to the name brand version, meaning the same active ingredient, same dosage, same absorption rate. They are, by federal regulatory definition, the same drug. The price difference, which averages 80 to 85% less for generics, according to the FDA's own published data, reflects marketing spend, packaging, and decades of brand awareness investment. It does not reflect formulation, efficacy, or quality. What you're paying for when you choose the name brand after knowing this is a signal, not a product. The signal that you buy the good one. The branded generic problem runs deeper than medication, though. A 2024 analysis by Consumer Reports found that in 34 of 40 product categories tested, from pasta sauce to pain relief to baby formula, store brand alternatives matched or outperformed name brand equivalents in blind taste and efficacy testing. You were right to compare the labels. The label comparison was enough. Number 10, situational emergency purchases. The overpriced airport meal eaten past the security checkpoint because you were hungry before a flight and there was no other option. The convenience store ibuprofen bought at 11 p.m. because your head hurt and you weren't going to drive to a pharmacy. The hotel minibar water at $8 because you needed waters and the minibar was 3 feet from where you were standing. These are not impulse purchases. They're not loyalty illusions. They're not forgotten subscriptions. There's something more straightforward. Situational pricing deployed against a captive audience. When your options are reduced to one, that option can cost anything. Research from the Travel Industry Association found that captive context food and beverage purchases, airports, stadiums, hotels, highway rest stops, average 60 to 200% above the same items purchased in an open market environment. You know this already. You paid $16 for a sandwich at an airport gate, and you knew, while paying it, that this was unreasonable. The feeling of not having a choice is real. It's also, in almost every case, not quite accurate. The reframe here isn't a purchasing strategy. It's architectural. A reusable water bottle, a granola bar in a bag, ibuprofen in your travel kit. None of these require discipline in the moment because the moment never arrives. The captive situation only has power over you in the absence of an alternative you already prepared. Once the alternative exists, the 200% premium disappears. And that's actually the most honest summary of everything on this list. None of these 10 things are financial disasters in isolation. Not a single item. The coffee isn't why you're broke. The parking spot isn't why you're struggling. Individually, every one of these purchases is defensible, proportionate, and human. What changes is the aggregate, the accumulated, compounding, year-over-year weight of purchases that your brain never fully processed as decisions, in a retail environment engineered specifically to keep them below that threshold. You weren't outsmarted. You were operating with a mental model calibrated for a world that no longer works the way it used to, in environments built by people who have studied your behavior more closely than you've had the opportunity to study it yourself. That's not a character flaw. It's an information gap, and information gaps close. The moment these patterns have names, micro-depletion, proximity pricing, loyalty illusion, attention debt, they stop operating invisibly. You start seeing them in real time, in the coffee shop queue, at the checkout, on the subscriptions page. The pattern recognition is worth more than any individual saving on any item on this list because it applies to everything. Not just today's 10. Drop a comment with the one that surprised you most. I want to know which one your brain had stopped questioning entirely.